Anthony Forlini is the Republican nominee for Michigan's Secretary of State. You will find his name on your November ballot. He's facing off against Lieutenant Governor Garland Gilchrist, who is the Democratic nominee. Mr. Forlini, welcome. We're glad to have you in.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate being here.
You know, for those folks up here who don't know you, you are the Macomb County Clerk in the Metro Detroit area. But for the folks up here, who's Anthony Forlini and why are you running for Secretary of State?
Well, I am the clerk of the third largest county in the state of Michigan. And the relationship between being a county clerk and the Secretary of State is pretty similar. We both have our duties within the elections department. We both are the keeper of the records. We are both the front-facing for most of the government services. So there's a lot of similarities between that, and that's partly why I think I'm pretty qualified to be in this role.
One of the primary, if not the primary role for the Michigan Secretary of State is to oversee elections, registering people to vote, counting the ballots, making sure everything is safe and secure. What do you think is the biggest priority needed for the Secretary of State's office as it pertains to our elections here in Michigan?
Well, as the county clerk, we spent a lot of time going ahead and making sure we did all the proper protocols, putting things in place to make sure people feel pretty comfortable with the elections. If you remember 2020, there was a lot of people, particularly in Macomb, that had some concerns. We took care of a lot of those concerns and made sure we were doing all the proper protocols, things that weren't being done before. Now, I believe we can take those to the state level and try to expand that across the state. And so transparency is probably the key. Lack of transparency makes people wonder, right? Is our elections being handled properly? Well, as the Secretary of State, I'm going to make sure we do all these protocols we did in Macomb, but also put things in place so that there's transparency and people can believe in their elections.
Give us some specifics. Like what were some of the things that were happening in Macomb County that made some changes for the better?
Yeah. So, right away we did a forensic audit of our election server and what we were doing there. We decided we were going to start making images. The tabulators actually will do images of each ballot and retain those images. That's important, and it's going to tell you how each tabulator scored each ballot. Boy, that's critical. We just put that all online now, so you can go to Macomb County and look at these images. You know what precinct you're in, you can pull up all those images and see how all the ballots were recorded. Boy, you ever wonder, Mike, when you put your ballot in, did it score it right? Some people wonder that. They don't know. So we're going to make sure all that's exposed, all that's out there so that people know that our elections are being held properly and the tabulators are working properly. We've done things like we have watermark ballots in Macomb County. That tells you the paper that was on it is the legitimate paper for a ballot. We've done things across the board, hiring, training, recruiting election workers. If things go wrong, it's because usually there's not quality people behind working on these, properly educated, and enough of them. We had one clerk actually needed 35 election workers the day before the election. That's kind of a sorry story right there. Had those people not been there, had we not had a database of people. So those are just a few things, and I can go through many more. We did a total of 13 different things to make our elections more secure, more believable, and just give people what they're looking for, a quality product.
This is the 21st century, and I asked the Lieutenant Governor when he was here if he ever foresaw a day when we could move the process to an online process. We bank online, we file taxes online, we do all these things securely online. If he thought there would be a day we could do that with elections. His answer was no, not right now. I'm wondering what you think about that, and if it's not, say, secure online voting, how do we move this process more toward the 21st century so it's not so rooted in folks standing in long lines on a work day trying to manually vote?
Well, I think a lot of those images are from the past. In Macomb County, during the presidential election, we saw longer lines, but having the 9 days of early voting certainly took some of that away, those lines, and spread it out over 9 days plus the 10th day of the election. So I think we've made a lot of progress, but we never want to get away from that paper ballot. That's the final imagery. You see right now there are some concerns about the Democrat convention. They try to do this technology, and there was a lot of chaos involved there. and a lot of concerns. So I really believe it's important to have the paper as a backup. We have pretty high technology right now in our elections, and I think we can continue with the process we have with a few reforms. I think we can continue to have great elections.
Tell us what other ideas you have for the office of Secretary of State in terms of if you win this election, what do you want to do to move it beyond where it is right now?
Well, you know, elections are really a small part of what the Secretary of State does. There's so many other things. The Office of the Great Seal is a great example of something that really needs some updating. I'll tell you why. I'm also the Register of Deeds. We are having fraudulent deeds come in like we've never seen before. People actually, the notaries are notarizing signatures that aren't real. And the problem is the notary real? Is the notary real? Who is notarizing the notary? So that's going to come back to a process of making sure we have something in place. And the one thing I thought was, you know, maybe just like the, you got the Google app that what's it called? It's an app that actually tells you, all right, put the digits in, and you have it actuated. Having a notary sign, put a code down that the Secretary of State sends down, we know that that signature was done by the notary at that point in time. It's a good signature. We need to do things like that. Like you said, use technology to our advantage. That's the Office of the Great Seal. Just a few changes there. And of course, what most people look at, getting your driver's license, getting
your car tag.
It tags, all that. You know, right now, for the most part, it's appointment only. We want to open that up like we did in Macomb County. In Macomb County, we open it up for appointments or just walk-in. And in doing that, we got it down to 4 minutes wait before you get up to the counter. That's on average. And by the time you're served to the time you leave, 10 minutes, you're out the door. Great service, 850,000 people in our county. We make it work. We can make it work across the state too. As you have traveled the state, this is my last question, as you've traveled the state, what have you heard from the voters and what do they want from their next Secretary of State? Well, I think the security of the elections is probably the biggest concern I've heard. I mean, over and over again, people forget about this, all the other services of the Secretary of State. And I got to remind them that it's a service. We're here to serve the public. So, but election integrity is the biggest thing. That's the biggest thing. We want to make sure we get rid of all the bad thoughts that people have that elections are rigged or elections are fixed. And when you don't have transparency, you can never prove that elections are not rigged. We're going to provide that transparency. Anthony Forlini, thank you so much for making the trip up to talk to the voters here. I appreciate it. Good luck with the election. Thank you. All right.